What's happening, everyone? JayShockblast here, and man, oh man, I've had some really good luck this week. I got to see 2 advanced screenings of movies. One I can talk about and one I cannot. The one I cannot is Aquaman. I can say it's amazing, but full review for that coming December 11th when I'm allowed to. The second movie I saw was last night in Boston, Massachusetts. I got, thanks to PlayStation, the opportunity to see an advanced screening of Spider-Man Into The Spiderverse, and I just have to say it was amazing. It was so fun. You are going to love it if you're a Marvel fan, Spider-Man fan, whatever it may be. It is just a joy, and thank you, PlayStation. They had a promotion where people with PlayStation Plus had the opportunity to snag 2 advanced screening tickets at select theaters for December 1st. So I did, and I do not regret it. It was great. One area that DC Comics really seems to shine is their animated films. They every year seem to put out like 4 or 5 animated feature films. They're usually direct to DVD and not in a theater, but there's still great feature films that I enjoy, and I enjoy watching, different stories from the DC universe. And Marvel, I don't know what it is, but they just have not seemed to get that. And I think that's going to change, because this is more than just a feature animated film. This is something that is just mesmerizing and groundbreaking even. It's worthy of being released in a theater, and I hope it smashes. There's already a sequel lined up, and there's even a spin-off, and it's awesome. Now, here's the point where I tell you guys there are going to be spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, which, let's face it, you probably haven't, maybe come back and listen to this when you have. And, if not, you're warned. I would certainly love you to stick around and hear the rest. But with that, sequels, we can see in the mid-roll credit scene that they were ready for a sequel, and there will be a sequel, and I love it. And there's so many possibilities. Now, we want to start off with this movie, obviously. It centers around Miles Morales, and everything takes place in his universe. So Miles is young. He's a little bit younger than I would like him to be. He's, I think, supposed to be an 8th grader. I really would have preferred it if he was at least a freshman or sophomore. And he is, going through growing pains. He's in a new school, and he's trying to fit in and find his place in life. I think it's like a charter school. He ends up staying there during the week and comes home on the weekends. And he loves his parents, but he really looks up to his Uncle Aaron, and he likes to escape out and go visit him. And what happens is we learn how Miles becomes Spider-Man. He gets bit by a spider, like a digital spider from Alchemex. That's why he has slightly different powers from the other spider people. And, his Uncle Aaron actually brings him to a place that he's been working, and that he spotted to do some tags, because Miles is an artist. And, they tag up this wall with this beautiful artwork. And little does Miles know that where Uncle Aaron has been working is with Kingpin and his collider, which he's using to try to get into another dimension to replace his wife and son, who died tragically trying to escape him. So, long story short, Uncle Aaron is the Prowler, and in this movie, the Prowler is a villain, and he's working with Kingpin. And when Miles starts to experience all of these sensations that go with becoming Spider-Man, he goes back to the place where it all started, and he finds the spider. The spider starts to kind of glitch out, and suddenly he hears all this banging, and he just walks into the middle of the epic battle that we see in a lot of the trailers. Green Goblin is fighting Spider-Man. He loves Spider-Man. He's just mesmerized by it. And before you know it, Green Goblin grabs Spider-Man and puts him in the middle of the beam of the collider, which causes many other spider people to pop over into Miles' universe. And in the process, there's this massive explosion. Spider-Man is mortally wounded, this version of Spider-Man, from this dimension, and Miles kind of goes down, and they'd interacted already. He was trying to stay out of the way. He wants to save Peter. This Spider-Man voiced by Chris Pine, by the way, and he just can't. And Kingpin actually ends up killing the Spider-Man of this universe, and that's kind of where we get to the different Spider people starting to meet up. Little did Miles know, at school he had already met Gwen Stacy, but we'll get to that. It comes down to the funeral of Peter Parker, and Miles visiting his grave. He's dressed in a Spider-Man costume that he bought from Stan Lee. Yes, we do have another Stan Lee cameo, and it was heart-wrenching. It was really like, I don't know, man, I almost cried, because we know that Stan just passed away, and I really felt very moved by what he said, and then they break right into comedy. I mean, you gotta see it. It's powerful, it's heart-wrenching, and they even had a tribute in the credits where I also almost cried. It's just amazing, and not just to Stan Lee, but to Steve Ditko as well, and that's just so phenomenal and well placed. But I digress. So Miles in a total Spider-Man Halloween costume is at Peter's grave when the Peter Parker from, I think, our Earth, the main universe, 616, shows up in sweats. He's older. Spider-Man is 26 in this universe, but this Peter Parker is pushing 40. He's out of shape. He's divorced. He's just a hot mess. Voiced by Jake Johnson, who has also been in New Girl. I only bring that up because my fiance Becky absolutely loves that show, and I find it to be pretty awful, but another story for another day. And it's very clear that Peter from Miles's universe, Peter that died, said, "I will teach you," and this Spider-Man wants nothing to do with a sidekick. But Miles kind of tags along anyway. He's doing, Peter's doing the best he can, and they're just trying to figure out a way back to their universe. He finds out really quick that he's glitching out, and that he's not supposed to be here. There's a lot of things that happen, man. There's a lot of really great, characters that pop up, that we see awesome interpretations of these characters. Obviously, the other spider people that we meet include Penny Parker, who's from the year 3000 something, and she's got her robot, that is basically, I think it's Spider, that her father built, and her father died tragically. Obviously Spider-Gwen is here. I think she's also a little younger than I would have liked, but she's also a little bit older than Miles, which is good. She's been Spider-Woman for about 2 years in her universe. We also see Spider-Man Noir, voiced by Nicolas Cage, and that was awesome. He's in black and white, and there's jokes that surround it, and he speaks like he's from the 1930s, and it's great. And Spider-Ham, voiced by John Mulaney, and Spider-Ham is basically Porky the Pig, and there's even a moment where he says, "That's all, folks," and they're all can he even legally do that? So it's awesome. There's just a lot of really great versions of Spider-Man, and while I'm not a huge fan of the multiverse, it's this that kind of works. And I do appreciate the way that they handled it. Everybody tells their origin story every time they show up. They go through the comic book, and it's very similar stories for all of them, but with a slight variation. They've all suffered personal loss, and it helps shape them into being who they are. And Miles hasn't really had that great loss. Ultimately, everybody meets up at Aunt May's house, who has this kind of Madam Web vibe going on. There's a spider cave where they go down this little elevator in the backyard. You can see all these different Spider-Man suits, including the Spider-Man PS4 suit. I mean, it's really, really well done. It's really cool. And the big problem is that Miles is so new, and all these different spider people need to get back to their universes, and they can't. Like, they can, but only somebody has to stay behind to make sure the super collider is destroyed, and they don't trust Miles. He can't control his powers. He's brand new. He's been Spider-Man for 2 days, and it's hard. And Miles keeps telling them, "Look, I can do it. I can do it." One of my very few complaints of the movie is just how quickly he puts it all together. Like, he goes from like being a high school kid to being like superstar Spider-Man in like 0.5 seconds. And I don't know if there's really a good way that they could have stretched it out, without it being, feeling like it was stretched out. So I have to suspend some disbelief for that. But one of the very few complaints that I have, because he's either just awful or he's great. And I think they did a really good job handling everything as best they can. That was just one of those tough areas that, so when they come out of, Miles leaves, basically. And he's been tracked by Prowler, his uncle, the whole time. His uncle doesn't know that he's the new Spider-Man, but Kingpin does know there was another person there that they've been trying to track down, because they want to kill him. They want to kill all the witnesses. And there's a lot of glitches and things that are happening, because of the collider. And if the collider goes off again, it's going to destroy, Brooklyn or wherever it is that they are. I mean, it's going to like have some serious ramifications. So that's why they needed to destroy it. And they also really want to prevent it from ever being used again, period. And Kingpin obviously can't have that. He is dead set on wanting to get his family back. So as they leave the spider cave, if you will, Prowler catches Miles, and all Miles can do is rip off his mask and say, it's me, because he knows his uncle is the Prowler at this point. And his uncle rips off his mask, and he's like, just like in total distraught over the situation. And Kingpin ends up putting a bullet through him. And in that moment, Miles knows it's bad, and he knows the loss that he's about to suffer. And that loss was his Uncle Ben moment. And it's powerful, it's moving. Like, honestly, these things, you can feel all these things as they happen. And the long story short is everybody gets back to where they need to be. Miles comes in and saves the day. And it's really a coming-of-age story for Miles. I think he does. Like, he really... You learn a lot about him, and I think a lot of people are really going to appreciate him because of this movie. Things that are just amazing about the movie are just the artwork in general. The artwork is just incredible. Like, honestly, it's so unique, and it's so easy to watch. I loved the way that they drew this and designed it and everything. Some of the characters were a little off for me. I didn't like the way that Gwen Stacy looked. She looked a little weird to me. I didn't like her face. Like, Gwen Stacy's beautiful, and I just feel like they kind of made her look a little too butch. Like, and it's not just the hair either. There are lots of unique takes on the characters, though. Like, Kingpin. Kingpin is just a monster. He's like all shoulders and like little tiny head, so he's kind of got this Uncle Fester thing going on. Voiced by Liev Schreiber, which is awesome. I think there's a great job voicing him. Scorpion was an interesting look. Tombstone was actually dead on. Tombstone was a great looking Tombstone. Now there's Doc Ock. I don't think I remember seeing Doc Ock during the trailers at all. And it was actually really cool because Doc Ock is Olivia Octavius. Liv for short. It's a female Doc Ock. And this is the type of thing that I actually generally don't like. But when we start getting into multiverse stuff, what does it matter? Like, you got Spider-Gwen instead of Peter Parker in one universe. I mean, it was actually really interesting. It was an interesting take on it. And the way that they used her was even interesting. I thought it was pretty fascinating. And Kathy Hahn was actually the voice of her, and it was perfect. excuse me. I've been talking for like 12 straight minutes at this point. So, yeah, like it was really cool. I actually appreciated that version of Doc Ock quite a bit. So that's what's really great about the movie, is it's just a little bit different, and the art is amazing. The music, the way that the music ties in is amazing. You know, they do kind of blend in some you know, cross promotion. Like Miles is always wearing Sony headphones that are very clearly Sony headphones. So like it's interesting the way they work stuff like that in. But like honestly, this movie is so great. You're gonna learn a lot about these characters, and there is one. Let me start over. The credits, the initial credit screen is worth watching by itself. Like there's so much extra animation. You see all these different Spider-Man costumes dancing and doing all these crazy things, and it's fun to watch. And then it gets to a mid-credit scene, which is setting up the second movie. Like I mentioned earlier, there is absolutely a sequel. They've already kind of announced it. Not only is there a sequel, excuse me, not only is there a sequel, but there's also going to be a spin-off featuring some of the female characters. So, Miguel O'Hara shows up, and it's not just a matter of setting up Spider-Man 2099 in a next Into the Spider-Verse. It's also a matter of there's some comedy bit to it. He goes back in time to where it all started, quote unquote, and it's a total meme, and I'm gonna leave it at that. When you see it, you're gonna be like, oh my god, they win the movie just with that right there. And it was honestly, it's exactly what you think it is. You can probably guess what the meme is. It's a very famous Spider-Man meme, and it is just phenomenal. And the movie's fantastic. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. I mean, there's very, very little things that I would have liked to have seen different, but it's got some slow moments that are necessary, but it still feels slow. And I think Aquaman kind of ruined that for me, because Aquaman does everything at a great pace. So I mean, this is a great movie. Like honestly, it's my favorite animated film from DC or Marvel by a lot, and I think people are going to be absolutely in love with this. It's going to get great reviews, and it should. I'm just like, my voice is like starting to go at the end here, and I'm like fighting coughs. I apologize. Excuse me. It's awesome. Like honestly, the voice acting was great. The music was perfect and fitting, and it was just a great take on the whole thing. And I can't wait for them to do more movies like this. Like it's I hope the next time it focuses on Miguel O'Hara instead of Miles, because every time you do this, you can actually take a deep dive look into different members of the Spider-Verse. We can have, you know, they're doing a spin-off with Gwen Stacy probably as the feature in the lead. And it's so great. It's such a great idea. And it's such a great way to build some of these other Spider-Verse characters and always keep it fresh and interesting. And in a lot of ways, I'm glad that they did it with Miles. It's not really a baton passing, but it is definitely, you know, an acknowledgement of such a great character in the Marvel Universe that deserves a little bit more attention. And I think it's going to be good enough for a lot of people. And for me, Peter Parker will always be the Spider-Man, but I feel a lot better about Miles. I do kind of wish that he had, like, they teased him having his own name, and I kind of wish that they went with that. Like, not Spidey or whatever they were going to call him, but, you know, we're Spider-Gwen is now Ghost Spider. I wish they had something like that for Miles to make him just a little bit more unique, but has nothing to do with the movie. So, guys, you got to see this. You got to see it in the theater. It's worth seeing. I saw it obviously in a theater with a lot of other fans of Spider-Man. Clearly, anybody that does the pre-screenings, if you could ever be a part of one, they're so great. I saw a pre-screening of Justice League, and it made me appreciate Justice League even more, because there was nothing but fanboys with me, and they were like cheering there are moments of this movie that are just so great that everybody like kind of marks out a little bit, you know. And I can't say enough good things about this. It is just a phenomenal experience, and you should definitely see it. So I would love to know what everybody thinks when they do see it. If you have seen it, it's a joy, you know. It really truly is. So I hope everybody enjoyed this video, and we'll see ya.